Hi everyone, I just realized my mic was off, so we have to start again. That's okay, I had a first go at it. This is Veroosh, welcome to my channel. I'm excited to be here with you, and yeah, so why don't we talk about the eclipse that's happening tomorrow on April 30th. It's a big eclipse, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. I was sitting here and thinking what to say to begin with. And as I was turning on the live stream, I realized it. How many of you are sitting out there thinking, when are things going to change? When are things going to change? I think that with this new moon eclipse, this is the beginning of a big change. Now the nodes switched through December and January, and we've already had an eclipse in Taurus last November. But this is the new moon eclipse in Taurus with the North Node, and so I feel like this is the real beginning of some things. Maybe I can summarize before we get into the astrology, and then we'll do tarot after. I switched what I'm going to do today with you guys last minute, so let me run it by you. So tonight, it's 5:30 p.m. where I live, Pacific time. So we'll do a full reading here for everyone, the collective, using these tarot cards. We'll see how I'll feel at the end of the astrology. And then I'll come back and do a second session with everyone, and we'll do members only clarifier for this. This is how I think it's going to be today. And you can find all those links in the description. I'll update them when we're finished. And then tomorrow I'll come back and I'll do a sign by sign in the morning before the eclipse, because a lot of people have questions about how it's going to hit their sign and what degrees and so forth. So tomorrow we'll do the all sign and talk about it. Okay? So there's a lot to say about this eclipse. It's deeply tied to the North Node and the South Node being in Taurus. So here we go. So this is the North Node in Taurus, and here is the conjunction of the Sun and Moon, the new moon in Taurus at 10 degrees of Taurus. That's the second decan. Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus, which is exalted here at 27 degrees of Pisces. I'll explain that in a little bit about what it all means. And the node itself is forming a pretty strong trine to Pluto in Capricorn, and that's one of the stronger angles that's influencing this eclipse. Now this is a partial eclipse, so maybe we can touch base on what an eclipse is and what it represents and so forth. So we go through eclipse season, people call it, but a series of eclipses that come together, and this is when either the moon obstructs the sun, and so we get a solar eclipse, or I always get this mixed up, the earth blocks the sun's rays onto the moon, and then we get a lunar eclipse. Is that right? That sounds right. Okay, so a solar eclipse is what's happening right now. And so this solar eclipse is happening with the North Node in Taurus. And I also want to tell you guys where we're going to go next. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to do this eclipse video today with you guys. Then tomorrow we are going to do the sign by sign for the eclipse. And then I'm going to do members sign videos. So each sign gets a full video with me for the membership. And so we're going to do that after we finish these videos. This weekend we'll start. And some of those videos may be available for everyone. So you want to turn on notifications if you're not a member, because that way you might be able to see it free. Some sessions that I read for the signs, I do live and I do publicly. And then once I'm finished, it goes to members. So if you don't have a membership for whatever reason, you're welcome to come and join us live and check it out there. And yeah, so members, thank you for being members as always. And the topic that we're going to talk about with members is the nodes. So we're entering into eclipse season. And so I thought it would be nice for us to talk about the eclipses in the context of the nodes. We haven't done a nodal series yet on this channel for this switch, and it's a big one, partly because a lot's been going on and I felt it was a lot to tackle all at once. So I thought this is a nice time to talk about the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. So I think the way that we're going to do it is I'm going to do a dedicated video on the nodes themselves and talk about some of the details, like a deep dive into the nodes. And then we're going to move into sign by sign videos for every sign about the nodes. So let me reiterate, because it's a brainstorm of mine in terms of trying to figure out how to do this for you. So we have today's video, which is the astrological breakdown of the new moon eclipse. Then we are going to do today the members extended as we clarify the tarot cards that we're going to read in a little bit. Tomorrow we're going to have an all sign video that's going to cover each sign's expression of this new moon. I think we need a little time with every sign for everyone, so we'll come back and do the all sign tomorrow. And then we're going to go into members only content, which will be possibly partly filmed for everyone, but will be for every member. These are full videos for every sign, and we're going to start talking about the nodes in those members videos to get ready for the public videos. Then I will publish a North Node, South Node video like this one for the collective, talking about the astrology, and then we'll get into the sign by sign videos for the nodes, North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, and I think that will be a bunch of stuff to talk about, so we'll stop there. So today we're talking about this eclipse, 10 degrees of Taurus. It is a partial eclipse, as I mentioned, so let's get into that. The eclipse starts at 11:45 a.m. Pacific time, so if you live somewhere else, just go onto Google and type in Vancouver, that's my location, and compare it with your city, and then Google will tell you what time it is in your location. The peak of the eclipse is 1:41 p.m. Pacific, so that means you want to look for 1:42 as the other side of the eclipse. I'll explain that in a moment. And then the final stages of the eclipse, the last area in which we'll see it, is at 3:37 p.m. Pacific time. So let me show you where this eclipse is, because especially for new moon partial eclipses, it's important. Unfortunately, I can't highlight the map, so I drew a circle for you guys to show you. But from the Pacific Ocean, the sun will travel alongside Antarctica. That will start at 11:45 a.m. and then slightly and gently finish up as the eclipse will travel, the moon will travel through Antarctica, which is not on this map, and then hit the tip of South America, and then carry up on the west coast of South America, and that's where it's going to finish. So it's a very short eclipse. It's a partial eclipse. Some old astrology references that eclipse is only effective in the areas where it happens, but modern astrology doesn't follow that practice anymore, and I think that that's a good perspective. Eclipse hits the earth, maybe it is more concentrated in this area, but overall it's affecting all of us. And it's a new moon, so it's all about new beginnings, and furthermore it's with the North Node, so it doubles that new beginning pattern. So let's go back a little bit. Sorry, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of ideas. Just to kind of summarize, the North Node moved into Taurus in December to January, and this is the first eclipse with the North Node that we're getting since that happened. And so the North Node in Taurus is bringing certain energies that we're going to talk about very soon. But for this eclipse, it's important for us to know there's a initiation of whatever the North Node is bringing to us. And that will be different for every single person based on your zodiac chart, based on your rising. There will be a different frequency based on your sun and on your moon. So just be aware of that. But if a new moon is a new beginning, an eclipse on the North Node is even more so a new beginning. And there's definitely a lot of things going on. So today the reason I canceled the all sign video, this was supposed to be an all sign video, is because we need to talk about this holistically. It's going to take some time. We're already at 11 minutes. So we're going to do all signs separately. But anyway, what was I saying? Excuse me, I lost track of time. But the new moon with the North Node is bringing a certain type of energy. There's a lot of, we'll talk about the implications for the world. There's a few things I want to kind of bring up. If you've been following me on other social media platforms, you know I've been kind of talking about it already, but this new moon in Taurus, what does it govern? It governs wealth, beauty, money, food, decadence, the second house, the face for many people, the neck and the shoulders physically. And so this new moon is an initiation point for many of you. You really want to figure out where that 10 degrees is in your chart. Some people use quadrant houses, which means that's what I use, which are houses that aren't actually equal. I just use equal houses for the collective readings to show you guys the principles. Some people use whole houses for their one-on-one readings. And so that might be easier to locate the 10 degrees of Taurus if you use whole houses. But whatever you use, just figure out where this 10 degrees is in your chart, and the house that it's in, and you can look that up, will affect your life that way. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, but that's basically what it has to do with. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It's a sign of coming into its own energetically, especially in the Western astrological tradition. It has to do with spring and early summer, and it has to do with kind of the strength. It's a very fruitful time of year, right? It's a time when everything's growing, everything's blooming, everything is coming into its own. It's a beautiful sign. And so this new moon is very prolific. It's a restart. If you consider things astrologically, the Aries new moon could be a good starting point for the new year, right? That was the last new moon we had. So this is the second new moon of this astrological year. And so therefore, what happens when we're born? We're born like little babies. That's Aries energy. We don't know left from right. But then when we become little toddlers, Taurus energy, then we start figuring things out a little bit. Life gets exciting. There's not too many restrictions yet because we're still protected by mom and dad. And we're running around and causing all this stuff to happen. So it's kind of an exciting energy, and that's how I equate Taurus energy. As I said, it's a partial eclipse. That means that the whole, it doesn't cover the entire sun. And so therefore, even those places that I showed you, they're not going to see a full coverage. It's just like one little corner of the sun will be covered. So with that energy, it's much lighter than it would be if it was a total eclipse. We have a total lunar eclipse coming in 2 weeks on May 15th, and we'll do a separate video on that. That's in the sign of Scorpio with the South Node. That's going to be a very different type of energy. That's going to be very, very strong. We'll talk about that separately. But here in Taurus, we're blooming, we're growing, we're initiating new things. It's a pretty exciting time, and there's a lot of supportive energy that's positive as well. So let's talk about the positive, supportive energy. One of the rulers So one of the supportive energies that I already mentioned is Pluto. If you've been watching several of my videos in the recent past, Pluto has been really, really central to what's going on in the world, both economically and in terms of geopolitics. When things were happening in Capricorn, suddenly a lot of things started changing. I'm not talking about these things explicitly, but I think that we're about to come into acceptance of the things that have happened in the world. I think we're still all talking about it in denial and in shock, not just this year's events, but I mean everything from 2019 on. I think people are still deciding what we're going to do as a collective. And there's going to be a breaking point, right? At some point to do with this energy that began in Capricorn. And so this breaking point may happen alongside the new moon eclipse. Something may happen that will trigger the collective to say, no, that's it, no more. And when the collective says that, no government, no corporation, no single oligarch or billionaire is going to be able to stop us. So without being too preachy, this energy is kind of exciting in the sense of those systems that we're all contending with. And we have all different opinions on how to handle them. Some people are, complacent to them. It's bad, but we have to make do with what we have. I think very few people think that our systems are functioning well. Some people are taking advantage of it. And then some people are really hurt by what's been going on and or distraught by how they see it play out in the world stage. Capricorn is a big tour de force. It's a huge blow of power. And so when all these transits were happening in Capricorn, it was intense. And one of the things I'll point out to you guys and remind you so you get familiar with the energy, but not to reiterate, by no means am I saying that the war in Ukraine is over. However, the first front of the war, the brutal physical aspect of it, happened when Venus, Mars were with Pluto, and North Node was in Taurus, another earth sign with Medusa. And the moment those transits moved out of these heavy, heavy conjunctions, what happened? There was a stall in Kiev. Right? There was a stall. Suddenly, Russia pulled back and came around from the east. And I'm not diminishing the atrocities that are happening there. But from an astrological observation, there was a pause in the force. And so I'm saying that to you because it's a good example. And I want you to see it in your own life. In the early part of the year, you may have felt a sudden rush of power that you may be up against in some cases, or just watching injustices happen. Financially, things have been very crazy, right, with the markets, and very speculative. And I think for the last 4 months, there's been people really holding on to their seats. A lot of people think, very smart people think, bad things are going to happen with the stock market and the economy, that it's just puffed up with air. And so people are walking around scared for 4 months. And so there was this drive, there was still that money drive up until that point. But when these transits like Mars and Venus moved out of Capricorn, suddenly there was less. And I'm not saying it stopped, but that's how astrology works. It just kind of changes things a little. The brute tank force of the Russian army started getting into, what did they call it? There was a joke about it. A tank, I don't know. It was like Ukrainians had a joke about it, that it was like a tank, what is it when there's like a plug of cars or whatever. I can't remember. But anyway, so there was like I can't make the joke. I just ruined it. I'm sorry. But suddenly that force, that physical force had decreased. And then financially something changed as well. And I don't think many of us appreciate what happened. I think a lot happened behind the scenes. And I think that there was like a grip on power. People were saying, oh, we're contending with monetary systems and we're beating them and stuff. I think that there was a consolidation of power, meaning power was being centralized at that time. I don't think financial power and so forth. I think all that stuff was crystallizing and getting stronger. And I think as all those planets moved out of Capricorn, I think that actually got lesser so. Okay? So that's Pluto energy. And so with this eclipse, that may be triggering the break in that kind of, it's kind of like a space in between. We're kind of in a transition point. And so with this new moon, it's very likely that we can experience that. What I said on a different social media platform, I mentioned it, that there's a possibility that this could lead to financial problems. If the markets financially are not working well, if they're puffed up with false numbers and all these kinds of things, these things can be catalysts. I mean, the things that are going on in China right now with possible further lockdowns, there's just so many things in the news. I don't really want to name them, but this is like a breakthrough moment, a breakthrough point. And in your own life, you're breaking through in some way here. It's and when people say, oh, that's bad or oh, that's good, I think that that's a misunderstanding, right? I think that it's good because it needs to change. It's like, how do you say this? Like if something's hurting you, but you keep doing it because that's the only thing you've got, sometimes it hurts to stop doing it, but it's for a better purpose. And I think that that's what the North Node in Taurus is. That's what we're going to talk about anyway. And so historically, North Node in Taurus is, to me, a buildup of strength. So, you get riled up and all these things happen very quickly, and there's like, hyper growth and kind of, I don't know, ambition on top of ambition in the world, or maybe for you personally. And the North Node reaches Taurus and says basically, okay, so how are we going to build? And oftentimes the North Node in Taurus receives a world or a personal life of possibly great difficulties. So there may be like, financial difficulties that you've already been left with at this point. So to me, North Node in Taurus isn't about the breakdown so much financially or in terms of your power in your life, but it is much more about the Taurus methodical building up. It's not Saturnian because Saturn's its own thing, but it's that 1 foot in front of the other Taurus energy. So this new moon, what I'm saying, I use allegory and examples to explain. I think people who like my stuff usually like to think abstract things, but those of you who are new or who want things more explicitly said, this new moon, people say, oh, something might happen and all this, but it's all in the perspective, whether that's good or bad, right? And I have a feeling that there's a lot of things in the world that are unhealthy and they're reaching a breaking point, and I think a lot of people agree. I think people see it all over the place. And so we are taking steps now towards resolving that. It's not going to be one thing, but North Node in Taurus is going to fill your life with improvements. And not all of them are going to be easy. Ask any Taurus person how they do things. They don't necessarily do things easy. They do things slowly, methodically, practically. And so that's the new moon energy that's starting here. So we're going to follow this new moon for a while. So let's leave it for that. But that's what I think this eclipse is. It's a very special thing. So let's talk about economics. Since we're on that topic, there was a little bit of a sidebar I wanted to mention. So I'll mention that and then we'll finish up with the astrology and do the tarot reading. But I already mentioned this elsewhere, but I wanted to share with you guys a historical chart. And I think this is a good time to talk about it because I've already told you that, I don't think it's bad. I think it's for the greater good, even if in the interim, some of the changes that happen are difficult, right? But it's think of it as methodical, grounded, I think truthful. So anything that's built on ill lies or deceit, that's going to struggle a lot in your life or in the global system. I think that there's like an accounting going on here, an audit. That's a perfect way to say it. Audits are a pain in the butt, right? But they are methodical and they clear the air once and for all. They look at the details and they say, this is what's happened. This is how we'll take steps to improve it. That's what the energy of this new moon is. So don't be afraid of it. I think I'm very excited for it because I think that what it's bringing is finally a change and a methodical, practical, down-to-earth change. And because it's with Taurus, I just think it's wonderful. So be excited. So that was my little caveat. I say the caveat because I don't want people to get scared. There's a chart that I don't know if I did this with you guys, but I think I only did a short form video on another platform about it. So let me show you this. This chart right here shows a chart. Now, some of you guys might be able to tell what year this is from, but notice that there's Chiron at 12 degrees of Taurus, conjunct the North Node at 12 degrees of Taurus, okay? So it's kind of a different position from where the North Node is, but this is a very special date. This is the date of the stock market crash that began the Great Depression. I'm not saying the Great Depression's beginning again. Remember, history echoes, it doesn't mirror, which means that the lessons of the Great Depression we are learning through now and we're applying now. So this isn't your scare tactic. But a lot of the similar themes, we know they're happening. Inflation, stagflation, scary things, right? Unemployment, shift in the workforce, that's also a big thing. Wars, a changing of the economic system, new world order type of things, a battle of ideologies. All of these things were happening there and they're happening now, just in a different way. So don't be afraid of your life and just keep working one foot ahead of the other. So this is the chart of the Great Depression. And it taught us some things, the Great Depression. I mean, I was born like 50 odd years after the Depression. Most of you maybe more than that. But we grew up with lessons from what those people went through. What happened with the Great Depression was that there was a stock market crash, and then I don't know specifically about America. I can speak about Canada, but I think it's similar, that there was a lot of fiscal policies that the governments tried to apply that were sort of mismanaged, and that extended the Depression several years. So I think the Depression is usually counted as like 1929 to 1932 or maybe 31, but it really kept going because there was like, they didn't know what to do about it. And so they did all kinds of weird monetary policy. But what happened in the 40s after that, the 30s and the 40s, the 30s and the 40s, of course, there was the war. But to do with that was also, there was also people really, how do you say, there was like really biting, I don't know what, I can't think of the word, but they were really tightening their fiscal policy. So that means that people were really struggling through those years after the Depression to pay back and to recuperate what they had lost. Okay, so it's all about being prudent here. Chiron is the wounded healer in Taurus. The North Node, of course, we know it's the gateway forward. And so this is in the same position as right between this new moon and Uranus right here. Uranus was where Chiron is right now, so there's kind of like a reversal from 1929 to now. But that conjunction of that stock market crash was literally in this position. So it's kind of a heads up. A lot of things are out of control, and if you're sitting by quietly and letting world push you around, you personally or on a global scale, I think that the lesson of 1929 is not to let ourselves be exploited and pushed around, and it's time for us to do something about it so we don't live for the next 10, 15 years recuperating losses. And that means finding peace with each other. That means sticking up for our rights, sticking up for each other's rights. Unions, I don't remember. I'll look it up because I used to know a lot about the Great Depression. Unions were born in the Great Depression. Unions were a huge part of the Great Depression. They were born out of it, but there was a lot of politics and corruption around that. I'll look it up and tell you guys later, but just know that this eclipse is alongside that. So sorry this is a long-winded explanation, but if I said it very directly, then I know someone would be watching this and they would be afraid because they would be like, oh no, everything's going to crash. And I don't think that's the point. I think we're supposed to learn from that time period. It might be a good time for you guys to either watch something on the Great Depression about what life was like or read a book about it. It might really help you to gain reflection on the things that are happening now. Now, this is for the global level and it's for the personal level. So in terms of, yeah, there's just a lot of things. One thing, when I was looking this up, I looked up Catherine the Great, the Queen of Russia, the Tsarina of Russia, the Tsar of Russia. She is, a lot of the things that are happening right now in the world are actually born out of her policies, if you guys don't. That was back several hundred years ago. And her birthday is actually, her son is in this position. So it's interesting. These things are mirrors, they're echoes of each other. And I think it's a mistake to say, oh, well, this is it. So this means that, and this is it. And it's so literal. I don't think it's that way. I think that it's important for us to appreciate these nuances. You know, the decision making that Russia made back when Catherine the Great was the Tsar. And then furthermore, what happened in the Great Depression. The last time Chiron was in Taurus, I just posted a short form video today about that on a different platform. The last time Chiron was in Taurus was 1979 to 1981. So if you were born through those 3 years, 4 years, you better watch out right now. Because so basically what I think it's doing is that it's giving you a preview of the next 7 to 8 years. If you were born during those years, late 70s, early 80s, you have Chiron in Taurus, and especially that 78 through 82 or so, you're right there in the middle. And so if you have Chiron in Taurus there, by about 2029, 2030, you are going to be going through your Chiron return in Taurus. So Chiron is in Aries. Everybody who was born in the mid 60s, no, I think it's 71, sorry. But people are having their return. And so people born in the late 70s, early 80s will be going through that return in 2029 and 2031, depending on when you were born. And I think this eclipse for you is teaching you certain things that you need to know about yourself, and especially with regard to wealth, especially with regard to health, with regard to your well-being, beauty. So, and also effort that you put into your life. It might be giving you some type of insight into how things function in your life. What is, like, how do you work and how do you affect change and what do you need to do better? With this eclipse, you may not be having a huge event happen in your life at this time, but it may be giving you insight into what will be coming into 2029 and so forth. And so it's very good for you to get ready. Chiron returns are really good when you can get ready for them. And I mean like a decade before. So if people that are having their Chiron return right now got ready for it, you know, when Chiron was back in Pisces, this is much easier than it is for them now. It's not a bad transit. It's kind of like lesson learned. It's like the exam. Did you learn your Chiron lesson? So those people are going to be having that. And with this eclipse, you might be having some type of wake-up call. So we covered the depression. We've covered Chiron. That's the things I wanted to tell you guys about. I forgot to mention, if you guys want a reading with me, it's still the direct link. So go into the description and in the comments and come get a reading with me. It's the terms are on there, so just make sure you read them. And so there is a very beautiful aspect with this. So I would call this Pluto aspect, I got a little serious. I called this Pluto aspect beautiful, kind of serious, but it's actually very beautiful and supportive. It's pushing things along. But there's another very, very special aspect you may have heard about, but I don't know if you've heard about it in such detail. So basically tomorrow, and there is a special conjunction that's happening between Venus and Jupiter. It's happening at 27 degrees of Pisces. Now, Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. However, at 27 degrees, that's the exact point at which she's exalted. That's the exact number. And so I did my research. I looked it up. And the last time this happened, Jupiter and Venus joined at 27 degrees. The exaltation point of Venus was 1700s. And the next time that it's going to happen is 2300. So not for 300 years. And it's special because Venus at 27 degrees is the most powerful. We've just had the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. And Jupiter is, of course, the ruler, the ancient ruler of Pisces. So very powerful there as well. So this is a very special moment that's happening tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific, 2:15 to be exact. So some people have been talking about manifestation because this is just asking for us to do some energy work with. So if you're interested in it, first of all, whenever you want to do any type of energy work around a powerful transit like an eclipse, make sure you know what you're doing. If you're not sure, you can just grab a crystal that you like. This is a very positive crystal called aragonite. It's all about positive expansion. Not necessarily for Taurus, it's a good energy. So you can just hold that if you're new to practice. But let me just tell you some things. So be very careful, first of all, around energy work and major transits. You don't want to do massive energy work when you don't know what's going on. This is like driving a Ferrari, right? So you don't want to go and cast a spell to get Bobby to love you. If you've never cast a spell before, it's going to be difficult. So if you know, first of all, know what you're doing. The second thing is with the eclipse, especially new moon eclipses. So I showed you guys the chart on how the moon will kind of travel up the coast. So the thing with new moons is that they have a pinnacle point, and that pinnacle point is 1:41 p.m. And so as a rule of thumb, I just told everyone, wait until after 2 p.m., after that peak point. That's the peak coverage of the light of the sun that the moon will do, if that makes sense. So it's almost like a new moon energy. The darkest moment is right before that, during that peak. And so 142 or whatever, the new energy comes in. And in my opinion, that's some of the most powerful energy under which to manifest. But it's like a Ferrari. So you have to know how to work with intentions. You have to be very clear on knowing how to ask for things or how to petition things. Because if you ask for, things with your ego too much, or if you don't know the consequences of things or how things can actually play out, if you've never done that before, you may be inadvertently asking for something that will have energetic backlash. So don't do it. But if you have some experience working with this energy, this is a very special conjunction here. Very, very special. I looked it up so far since negative 1,000, but since 1000 BCE. So it's only happened 5 times at this degree, the exaltation point of Venus. So I'm hoping it's beautiful. So that's the magic talk in terms of astrology. This is very beautiful for love and magic. We'll talk about it more tomorrow with every single sign, but Pisces is the sign of transcendent understanding of the world and love. Where's my kunzite? I was showing you guys about it. Did I already? Well, here's another spodumene. So I have this spodumene. It's kunzite's a spodumene. So this is another one, but it's not pink. Usually kunzite's pink. So here's my kunzite. So those are Neptunian crystals, okay? Neptune is the high vibration of love, and so Pisces energy is that high vibration, high love vibration, and so forth. And so it brings with it the conjunction of Jupiter and Venus brings with it immense love, very powerful love. So yes, I think that you should be excited. I think that you should look forward to this. This is going to bring transformation and love. This is going to bring increased passion into your life. And so, yeah, I just think it's just the best. So Jupiter and Venus are joining right at the same time as the new moon is happening. And they're actually creating a sextile with the North Node. So sextiles are sort of like doors opening. So this is breakthroughs in love. In terms of world politics or global issues, there may be a breakthrough moment that happens now. Remember, some of these things we may not see until after, so just be patient. But there's a transcendence of generosity, of appreciation of beauty. You know how I was telling you about people sitting by and letting bad things happen? This is a moment where people's hearts may light up and they may say no more. So this may happen in your personal life, or this may happen collectively. So be excited for it. It's a beautiful, beautiful transit. So actually I covered everything. I was so nervous about this, but it's good. So a couple little comments as caveats at the end. So, no, actually, I was just going to say that there's been some talk I mentioned recently about cyber warfare. This is mostly relevant to Aquarian energy. Aquarian energy is technology. And I don't know if you guys know this, but this isn't less reported on, but there's been incessant cyber war on Russia from volunteers. And so one of the biggest challenges Russia has is that they have been going through relentless cyber attacks for this entire time. The news agencies don't talk about it, but I think that it's already happening. And so when we're talking about cyber war, we can think about it as people attacking us. But I think the way that it's manifesting is the offensive against Russia is actually very strong that way. So everything, all their computer systems and all their corporations are just being attacked by all these different people that are doing these things. So cyber war is happening, and it started about the time that I told you guys it would, which was like February 15th. It initiated with Russia, but there was a big backlash. The thing about that you may not know is that there's really good programmers in Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, all over Eastern Europe, because programming is a relatively inexpensive thing that a person can get into. So if you live in a poorer country, it's relatively inexpensive to get yourself into a much better situation financially by learning coding. So there's a lot of so there's a lot of people that live in Eastern Europe, Central Europe, who have spent a lot of time, who don't have a lot financially, and thereby have less to lose. So they just put their effort into programming. So it's interesting in that kind of lens. So that's all I want to say about that it is happening, it is proliferating, it is growing. Of course, there's also problems. Jupiter's expansion in Pisces. I don't think of this as bad. I really don't want to say something bad will happen because Venus is exalted in Pisces. Bad things can happen all the time. If something needs to happen, then it needs to happen. But I really want to stay positive. So mass spread of biological weapons, I hope that's not a part of it. But Pisces is disease. If you're a Pisces, I'm not saying you're diseased, but Neptune can be very can be very global in its energy. It is very global. So there could be things like that, but I don't think so. I think this is a very blessed moment. I'm really hoping it's a turnaround. And the last thing that I'll say is, and I hope you guys hear me when I say this, Putin, we know who we're talking about, has been talking about the big bubba, the big, I don't want to say the word, the big weapon. None of us like Cold War kind of comments, right? And so one thing that I'll say is, when the war began, he was literally saying the things he was going to do. And then he did them. And then people say, oh, well, he says a lot and he doesn't do it. Just from a Slavic perspective, when I hear a person like that say those things, he may choose not to do it later because it's a better option. I really hope he's not choosing to do that because, I hope he has pause for however his logic is working about the issue, right? However, I think what Wes doesn't understand is when he's saying those things, it's not flippant. And I think that the reactions that I've been seeing to those statements are flippant. Oh yeah, he's not going to do it. Watch him. You don't want to think that way. You don't want to take it for granted. So that's what I'll say about this. And this is also touching back on that Capricorn energy as the power, because I believe that Russia came into things with this Capricorn energy. And so as that power kind of deflated in a way, what happens when people start losing power is when you put them in a corner, they can act crazy. I'm not saying bad things will happen. I just think we need to take those threats more seriously. Okay? So I just noticed it's 48 minutes. So maybe we'll do a little spread. I'm not going to do the extended. We'll come back tomorrow and do the all signs. And I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of, conversation about things. I hope it helped. And I hope you're getting ready for this new moon. I really tried to show you guys how beautiful of a transit this is. It's really a beautiful transit. This new moon, so rare, so beautiful. So this is the second decan. I'll just tell you guys. It's ruled by the moon of Taurus. That's an exalted moon moon is exalted at 3 degrees of Taurus. So I don't know what tarot was thinking doing that. But the second decan is ruled by the moon, which is exalted in the sign of Taurus. In the modern systems, Mercury is the ruler of this decan. And Mercury is now just in Gemini, about to go retrograde. Negotiations on the table, a pushback. Pluto has gone retrograde. State power looking back on things. I think it's hopeful. Remember, we'll be talking about this. This is going to be the big eclipse, the Scorpio one, because that's when we're going to be letting go of things and not everybody's going to be willing to let go. But this is the initiation of power. I do think it's subtle at first. I do think that, what is happening, whether it's subtle or not, the ramifications of it are going to be very far reaching. This is the page turner. This is the new, not only chapter, this is the new part of the book. And then all the political stuff. Okay. But yeah, I think it's good. Oh, and the third decan of Pisces. So it's the third decan is ruled by Pluto in tradition, and Pluto's in Pisces right now. And modern ruler is Pluto. Traditional ruler is Mars. Modern ruler is Pluto, and that's a sextile. You guys know I like my sextiles. So we have portals. This is the old language that we were using. Portals, doors opening, new beginnings, and a fresh start. So whether that's for you personally, I really want to encourage you guys to be active, to stand up. Use this energy to stand up. And like I said, inform yourselves about the past, whether it's 1980 or 1929. and reflect on how we're handling things right now. And you can demand, you know, the government in the 20s and 30s wouldn't mess with the individual people so much with these unions and all these things, because they would send them running. And one thing that I'll say right now is that it feels like many people in authority, they have this kind of grip on authority where they're like, they act like they're unaccountable for their actions and things. So maybe this is Taurus energy, the eclipse, keeping people accountable. Okay? So I don't know, with that's personal. You can stand up for your rights. Why don't we pull a little cards? I'll play the chime just to soften the energy. It's good though, right? So if you guys are, a couple of you guys were asking about individual sign astrology, and on my short form videos on the other app, on the other social media platform, people were asking about that. That's why I'm going to do a separate all sign reading, and there I'll talk about everybody's, not everyone's, but I'll highlight which degrees and parts are important to watch out for. And we'll do that in the morning tomorrow. So before 2 p.m. Pacific, everybody's up to speed with this. Okay. So we have, I'm just going to pull a few cards. So we have 8 of Rods, quick communication happening. Very quick. And then we have King of Cups, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. Possibly. You guys know I don't use, I just do those as general observations. This is Mercury and Sagittarius. The Death card, change. And we have the Emperor. So there's some kind of, it looks like there's energy that's being won over. A situation is becoming better. You have your foothold in a situation. You can demand. A relationship may change. Somebody's changing on the inside. Their personal values are changing. They're growing into themselves. They're becoming stronger. And maybe this is you. People are waking up. This is a waking up energy. Okay. Then we have the Knight of Swords, Gemini, Aquarius, or Libra. We have the Moon, which is Pisces energy. So that's where everything is happening. And then we have the 10 of Cups. And then we have the 8 of Cups. It looks as though someone may be taking a liberal direction. Not a liberal direction. Sorry, that's a weird way to say it. Somebody's being a little bit not serious about certain things. Like they may be messing around, especially with someone younger. And they're losing the respect of someone in their life. So they're seeking immediate gratification. But I think that if this isn't an energy of immediate gratification, this is an energy of meticulous, heavy-handed, hard-working application of the self so that you can gain results. So, and if you're messing around, or if somebody's messing around with you, they're going to be losing attention. This is a very serious energy. Then we have the Page of Wands. And then we have the 8 of Swords. And then we have the Temperance card. And then you have the Sun. A new beginning seems hard at first, but it's going to be very fruitful. There's going to be a very good outcome to things. Things are going to work out. I think someone's feeling unsure about the way forward, which makes sense for this energy, but there's going to be a good outcome. And then we have 6 of... There's also a separation of people. Now, this is more of a friend situation or a family situation, not a romantic one, in which one person loses respect in the eyes of the other. This could be at work as well. So somebody could be, you know, somebody's just messing around too much and someone's just about had it. Tauruses are very like that. If we know a Taurus, it's very like this, like once it gets, and that's a victory for them. So there's been, somebody's changed in character or the way they're doing things or something like that. They're just on a different page suddenly, and it's detracting from possibly you or someone else in the situation. And so there's a separation. Somebody's walking away from someone else because they're making themselves a liability. Okay? Let's see the next message. We have the 5 of Swords. And then we have the 9 of Wands. And then we have the 6 of Swords. There's a disagreement between people, and there's definitely one person walking away. And it's like, it's an observation on how a person acts, and there's like a reservation towards that energy. Why don't we pick a card from this just to get, we'll do these tomorrow, but we have the Return. I love these cards. This is the Philosopher's Stone Oracle cards, are out of print. Very hard to get, but I'm obsessed with them. We have Movement, and I'm not selling my deck. It was hard enough to get. And then we have Stop. Moving forward, but it's not going to move quickly right away. There's things coming back. Look at this. It's all directional sort of cards, going one way, going the other way, returning, trying to figure things out. Stop and listen and pay attention. You might be looking at someone and saying, they're not playing a fair game, or they're being a smart butt, you know, they're taking their liberties in some way. But ultimately, you're going to walk away from the situation. And I don't think it's a big sting. It's more like, you know, just got to reassess certain things. I sense arrogance from someone. Somebody's taking, like, oh, I can get away with this, so I'm going to try to get away with this sort of vibe. So anyway, so I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning. You guys, welcome. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And let me know in the comments what you guys thought. Members, we're going to do member readings probably tomorrow or the next day, okay? So probably on Sunday we'll start with member readings. And they're going to be full readings about the eclipse. Not about the eclipse, but about the nodes in North and South Node in Scorpio, okay? Yeah, pretty exciting energy. Thank you for coming.